Listen, if you don't have a side hustle in 2025, you're cooked. I've spoken to people, their side hustle was cleaning shoes. The guy that I know he's cleaning shoes, he's making 12K a month. When I was having a conversation with my guy Ayo, who's a financial advisor, he even emphasized that every single person can have a side hustle. There's no excuse for any person to not make more money. There's absolutely no excuse. Listen, if you don't have a side hustle in 2025, you're cooked. Having a side hustle in 2025 is literally the only way that you can survive. I know a lot of people, they might say, cool, they're earning a ridiculous amount, they don't need a side hustle, or they might say there's no time for a side hustle. But honestly, this is the only way to survive in 2025 in the UK. If we're talking about average salary, let's say the average person's on 30K a year. That 30K a year, before you know it, all that is gone. Whether you're talking about rent or mortgage, whether you're talking about utilities, whether you're talking about holidays, all of that is gone. But when I was working at primary school and about 25K a year, my take home was about 1,700. Yeah. Let's say the average person, they're on that salary, 25K a year. Their rent, the average rent in the UK, again, if you're talking about London, you're finished. If we're talking about London, yeah. In fact, let's just say the average rent in the UK. The average rent in the UK, I believe, is £1,300. Yeah. So let's say the person's making £25,000 a year, and they're taking on 1.7. You're taking home 1,700. Your rent is £1,300. That is £500. Wait, that's £400. Sorry. So now you got £400 left. £400 left. Now let's say car. A lot of people finance their cars. Let's just say your car is 200 for argument's sake. That's £200 left. Now you're talking about food. You're talking about bills. Like, it's mental. And now let's take myself in that scenario. When I was earning £1,700 a month, or taking home £1,700 a month, I decided to start setting money aside every single month, because I knew that I had to have my own side hustle, because really and truly, that was my only way out. I knew for a fact it was impossible for me to survive on that salary. And now looking back, the side hustle that I did chose, it's a game changer. Obviously, there were so many different side hustles. And the thing is, I feel like that's what a lot of people need to realize. When a lot of people think of side hustles, they think, oh, you know what? I'm not going to have time for this. I'm not going to have time for that. But really and truly, that same mindset is obviously going to keep you broke and it's going to keep you in the same position. There are so many side hustles, whether you're looking at Amazon FBA, whether you're looking at drop shipping. In my case, I chose rent to rent. But I've spoken to people, their side hustle was cleaning shoes. Like, the guy that I know, he's cleaning shoes and he has his own shop now. He's making 12K a month. Yeah, obviously that's not profit. But he's obviously doing all of that from cleaning shoes. Now, a lot of people would have probably looked at him like, why am I going to be cleaning shoes? But really and truly, he chose that as his way out. And obviously that's why he's obviously doing more. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people, there are so many different side hustles that they can do, but a lot of people don't want to look into it because they think they don't have no time. But that's just an excuse. Saying that you have no time is a blatant excuse, and it's going to keep you in the same position. Obviously, for me, there comes a point where you're going to have to go crazy in terms of like your schedule, in terms of sacrifices, but that's the part and parcel of the game. But if you don't have a side hustle, then you're going to be finished. When I was having a conversation with my guy Ayo, who's a financial advisor, he even emphasized that every single person can have a side hustle. There's no excuse for any person to not make more money. There's absolutely no excuse, especially when you're in the UK. There's no excuse not to make any more money. Whether it's the internet and you're looking at creative ways to make money, or whether it's tapping into things in your network, but there's actually no excuse. Let's say you're a teacher, for example. You're a teacher. Obviously, education is your main thing. You already have that experience of teaching people. So now what you can do is, if there's already students in your class who already trust you, you can now decide to start doing extra tuition lessons for a group of kids. If you're now going to charge £10 an hour and you have 10 kids who want to do that, that's £100. If you do that 3 times a week, that's £300. That's £300 a week. Times it by 4, 3 times 4, that's £1,200. So now that extra £1,200 on top of the £1,700 that you were taking home, that's £2,900. That extra money is what you can now use to do other things, whether you want to scale the business and now employ other teachers under you to do the same thing wherever they are. This is just a simple, quick way of how a teacher could use their salary to actually make more money. And now think about in any industry that you're in. A lot of people, they can do that. You know, in the previous video, I mentioned about how a lady in Pets at Home, she was making, I don't even know how much she was making. I think she probably was making way less than 25K a year. But she left her job working in Pets at Home to now set up her own grooming business, whereby she's her own boss. Right now, she's an example of somebody who escaped her 9 to 5 to create her own freedom. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of people have the opportunity to do something like that. I understand that some people, their job might be quite demanding, but really and truly, there's no excuse. Like, if you're gonna complain about your 9 to 5 and say you don't wanna work a 9 to 5 and say that you want financial freedom, then the truth of the matter is, you need a side hustle. Like, there's no way you can survive in the UK in 2025 if you don't have an extra source of income. Too many people are relying on their 9 to 5. Like, we don't live in that time anymore where your 9 to 5 is enough. Like, your 9 to 5 is no longer enough. Even if you're making like 60, 70 bags, really and truly, like, you might be working like a madman, but having that extra side hustle that you can grow to a point can allow you to buy back your time and have that freedom that you want. So yeah, man, if you're watching this and you're obviously looking for more ways to make money, then listen, my advice is ChatGPT is free, man. Like, just think what can work for you. For a lot of people, the side hustle that's probably going to work for you, it has to cater around the skills that you already have. If you already have knowledge in a certain area, that's obviously going to be a bonus. For example, I gave an example of a teacher, how a teacher can start their own side hustle. Like, whether you're cleaning shoes, in my case, obviously, it's rent to rent. For me, rent to rent, I saw that as the best strategy for me because I didn't need a large amount of capital to get started. For me, all I needed was about 6 or 7K to actually take on my first property. And obviously, those properties are able to profit me money every single month. And for me, I saw that, I was like, cool. If I'm able to get to 5 properties, I can make X amount. And then I use that to replace my income. I waited until a time where I was making a certain amount for my rent to rent business, and I used that to allow me to escape my 9 to 5. And for me, it took 10 properties, but really and truly, I just decided to wait a long time because I knew I wanted to scale aggressively. But the truth of the matter is, I had a plan. I saw my primary school income wasn't making me enough money, wasn't going to give me the life that I desired. So what I had to do is I had to find a side hustle that works for my situation. For me, I saw it as something that I could go all in as well. For a lot of people, you need to time that as well. Like, it's not a rush to go full time in your business. Like, don't get it twisted. A lot of people have this misconception that working 9 to 5 is bad. Working 9 to 5 is not bad. You just need to know how to leverage it and use it wisely in order to build a life that you actually want. But for a lot of people, it's not time to leave your 9 to 5. Like, a lot of people are so eager to rush into the life of being an entrepreneur, but don't get it twisted. Like, it's not all glamorous. So I think a lot of people need to take their time with that. For me, my advice is leave your 9 to 5 when you have enough income coming in from your side hustle. And obviously that's relative to everyone, because for some people they have high expenses. For some people they might have rent or whatever that's 2,000, their outgoings might be about £2,500 a month. So for that person, cool, then it might make sense for you to wait a bit longer before you actually leave your full-time job. But for others, they have low expenses, they might still be living with family. And for those people, they have the chance to actually leave much earlier. But I think regardless, nobody's going to make that decision for you. You need to know what works for you. You need to know what is the number that allows you to leave your full-time job. But regardless, man, I think it's so important that people don't underestimate the importance of having 9 to 5. For me, one of the biggest reasons why I was able to leave my job when I did was because I was consistent with the 9 to 5 income. I was working for a set amount of time and I knew, cool, by 18 months, I should have X amount. I was putting money aside, saving. That's another thing a lot of people don't do. A lot of people actually don't save. I just decided to check online the average savings per age group, yeah, just so we know what we're working with. So this is in 2025. In 2025, age 18 to 24, their average savings is 4.7K. And I know there's many people who don't fit this category, but it's what it is. 25 to 34, the average savings is 9.3K. 35 to 44, it drops to 7.4K. So now if we're talking about the average person, let's say 4 to 9K, let's say you're floating about 5K. Really and truly, there's not a crazy amount of side hustles that you can have that with 5K, you can generate a ridiculous amount. And this is why it's so important to understand timing and patience. If you have 5K in the account, you're not gonna flip that 5K to 50K in a year. It takes timing. So find a side hustle that you actually do enjoy, because for a lot of people, the reason why they get demotivated with their side hustle is because they're thinking to themselves they're not making enough money. But really and truly, all of these things take time. These people who have their clothing brands, their clothing brands didn't blow overnight. These people who have their rental business didn't blow over time. Like, it's compounding. It's after a while, it begins to build. So that's why my advice to people is find a side hustle that works for you. But also remember that it's a long-term game. I know a lot of people want to generate cash very quickly, but understand that you need timing for these things. there's only a certain period where you can really afford to go all in. I remember speaking to someone who was doing really well. I think I said this in a previous vlog. And when I say really well, what I'm talking about, they were making over 5 mil a year. I think they said to be honest, at probably about 30, probably about 30 to 30, around 30 to 33, you can afford to lose it all and still make it back at 30 to 33. And the reason is, like, obviously it's dependent on people, because like some people might have kids, family, mortgage, but really and truly, you do have time to get it back. And for a lot of people, they don't actually understand that. A lot of people who come and speak to me, they think, oh, at 25, 26, they don't have their life figured out, they're finished. But really and truly, that's not the case. At 25, 26, for me, I saw my 20s as a time for me to go all in. So for me, I wasn't going to make any excuses. I knew that this was a time where I had to lock in with everything, go all in my business. And that's why I decided to quit my business when I did, because I said to myself, it's time to go all in. And for me, I just couldn't cope with my 9 to 5 anymore, because business was just crazy. But for me, that's what works for me. So I feel like for a lot of people, you would know when it's time for you to go all in. You would know when it's time for you to leave your 9 to 5. Nobody's going to come and tell you when to do that. But regardless, make sure that you have some savings there. And for some people, I feel like you need to be more strict with your savings. For a lot of people, I feel like, especially young people, their mindset is just enjoying. But really and truly, you've got to think for a rainy day. And I think for me, one of the biggest blessings I done was I took my time to leave my job. Because if I didn't know what was gonna entail with business. Because when it came to, I think it was about 2023 Jan, when it was a struggle in terms of my business, in terms of paying rent, it was my savings that I was able to rely on. So for a lot of people, this is what you need to anticipate with business. That business is not going to be smooth sailing. So don't be in such a rush to leave your job. Take your time when it comes to this. Stack your bread when you can, and also educate yourself. Educate yourself so you know exactly what you're getting yourself into. Before I went into rent to rent, I decided to have a mentor, somebody who can help me get started and show me the ropes, so that the mistakes that they made, I didn't have to make. And obviously now I'm in the position where I do the same for other people. So regardless, in whatever field that you're going into, make sure that you know enough of what you're going into, man. But yeah, man, moral of the story is, don't rely on your 9 to 5. Use your 9 to 5 to create a 5 to 9. And when you have that 5 to 9, keep at it, keep scaling it. And that 5 to 9 will eventually help you leave your 9 to 5, man. But yeah, appreciate you getting to the end of the video. Hope you found some value in it. As always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And if you don't follow me already, make sure you follow me on Instagram, _EZY Property. And also, if you are looking for a side hustle like rent to rent, and you want a bit of guidance, or even if you just want to ask questions, drop me a message on my Instagram, and I'll be more than happy to help.